Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now open for questions. Khoo Peng from Pemandu, as well as Tan Sri Leo Hian from KLK, whether questions from on the palm oil sector, or whether in terms of entrepreneurialism, whether in terms of leadership. The mics are now being circulated around the room. Do please just put your hand up if you have a question for either of the two gentlemen. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Famiza from Muslimah Manufacturing Kedah. I manufacture soap base made from glycerin, which is from palm oil. The question I have is, do you have plans to do like rebranding or special advertising in Europe or in the US on palm oil? Because I have customers who would prefer for me to not use raw materials from palm oil. So we are having a bit of we're having a bit of problem there. So do you have plans?
Yes, we have. I mean, the fact is the outgoing work is happening. MPOC is the lead implementing agency. They have been going out there to deal with the perception matters. They are also dealing the issue from a G to G perspective, and in some cases on a legal perspective. What we are doing right now, which is a work in progress, is a much more concerted effort to go out there and brand Malaysian palm oil so that it's differentiated from palm oil from other sources. We know that our palm oil in Malaysia is a lot more responsibly produced than in other parts. And where our Malaysian companies go to other parts of the world to produce palm oil, they bring that same sense of responsibility and sustainability to those areas. So Malaysian source and Malaysian company produced palm oil are the ones that we are trying to differentiate for the market. So we're doing that, so do bear with us.
Thank you. Another question, sorry. Would it be possible for you to plant palm oil in the forest?
No, basically palm oil, for example, in the NKA for new planting, it can only be planted on lock-over land, which means that the piece of land has already, it's no longer under the Gazette, it is a commercial piece of land. It may have been locked or it can have been used for other purposes, then you can plant on those land. You cannot touch gazetted forest land, you cannot touch protected forests. We must maintain that forestation cover at about 50%, because that's very important, not just for the palm oil industry, but also for the future of Malaysia and the world.
What I mean is it possible for you to plant palm oil with other trees so that that issue, what I mean is not about the gazette or not about the land, but would it be possible for you to plant palm oil with other trees so that this issue of us cutting trees to plant palm oil would not be an issue anymore?
Yeah, but unfortunately we can't do that because the palm oil need a lot of sunlight, So once we plant in the midst of the jungle, the palm will not be able to grow.
Thank you very much.
If I could add, it's actually very technical. You can only plant, if I'm not mistaken, about 148 palms per hectare, and you've got to arrange it in a certain way so that there's enough nutrient, there's enough sunlight, there's enough water. And I think we have tried intercropping, and intercropping didn't work. We have to actually do more work in terms of ensuring that the moisture stays in the ground, in the fronds that are cut down or laid down in a certain way. So it's much more complicated than that, yeah?
Okay, thanks. I think I see a hand go up there, thanks.
Morning. My name is Ding. I'm from a company called Ditali in Kuantan. I'm actually in the oil palm industry. My question is related to labor in the oil palm industry. I have 3 questions in particular. The first is actually to Mr. Khoo. Mr. Khoo, you mentioned, and I quote, that the work in the oil palm industry is considered to be dirty and demeaning. And I wondered why you said that. Secondly, why is it very often said that local Malaysians do not want to work in the oil palm plantation? Perhaps Tan Sri Lee, you could give us your opinion about that. And my third question is related to what action we can take to improve our labor situation in Malaysia, And the question is there anything that the plantation industry can do to encourage more local Malaysians to work in the plantations? If the answer is no to that, I think I would go home to Kuantan from this meeting feeling a little bit depressed. If the answer is yes, what specifically can we do to encourage more local Malaysians to work in our plantations? Thank you.
Maybe I could take the first question, Tan Sri can take the other two. When I say 3D, the dirty, demeaning, and dangerous work, I was referring to the harvesting and the general plantation work. Of course, if you are working in the factory and you're working on the administration, no, it's not 3D work. But those 3D work are very, very difficult, and the locals don't want to do it.
I think concerning the second question is that generally for Peninsular Malaysia, the ratio of migrant workers is about 60%, 40% local. Some of us have 50% local workers. And so we can still get a certain amount of local workers here. But in East Malaysia, it's almost 95%. Because you just look at the population size of East Malaysia. And on top of that, they have a lot of their private land for the local people, for local citizens. Generally, the Indonesians that we're bringing in here actually work very hard because they want to earn as much money as possible. And they are physically quite strong, so they actually harvest a lot of the tall palms, But in the recent years, I think there is more and more mechanization. Mechanization in the sense of, you heard of chantas, which is the harvesting tool that increases productivity about 30%, and the local workers doesn't mind using that because it increases their earnings, the work becomes less strenuous for them. So we need more and more innovations along such line, basically to help them to carry out the crop from what they harvested in the field, which is the heavy work, mechanized evacuation. Sometimes we use buffaloes, but I think I'm confident with time, more and more productivity improvements will be made. There will not be a single magic bullet, but there'll be many, but innovations upon innovations will add up to much more productivity. And if our locals can earn much more, I don't see why they don't want to work in the plantations.
Thank you. Right, we've got quite a few hands up. Perhaps over there from the side of the room. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Khoo from Samdabi. I have a question for Tan Sri Lee. What are the 3 key lessons that you instill in your children to ensure that they remain competitive in a fast-changing world that is overpopulated and hyper-competitive? Thank you.
I think the first thing that I would like to mention is attitude, You have the right attitude, which means the respect for people, having the right type of culture, humility, the thing, because you have to learn from other people. Secondly, to know that you have to know your subject matter well. Because you do not know your subject matter well, it's very hard to earn the respect also. Yeah. Also, it's very hard to contribute, and also probably if you are being too forceful, you take the company along the wrong strategy or wrong route. So I think these are the important things that I will think for the younger generation.
Thanks. Perhaps over there. Thank you.
Tan Sri, my name is Aslam. I'm from Pima, and it's not directly to KL Kepong, but it's generally what Indonesia is today is from Malaysia actually. What Malaysia has done all the work in palm oil and all that, and Indonesia has learned from that, and now whatever the policy Indonesia is adopting is what Malaysia was adopting in the past, you know, to promote more downstream activities and all that. So in that context, I just want, because there's a lot of investment of Malaysia is in Indonesia and all that. What do you feel if we have a common market of palm oil between Indonesia and Malaysia? You know, how do you, I mean, look at it?
I think what you say is true. Indonesian expansion and success in the plantation industry is piggyback on the human resources of Malaysia and also the policies that have been laid down by Malaysia. Malaysia is ever willing to work with Indonesia. We have a lot of joint committees together, but sometimes Indonesia is still not as organized as Malaysia currently is. They do not have a lot of good statistics about the size of the plantations, the smallholders, and all those things, whereas we have got that registered under MPOB and all those things. Indonesia is still a little bit hesitant in openly working with Malaysia, I feel, you know. But of course, I think, as they say, we have also to look at ourselves, how to encourage this relationship to be better. I think it's not ideal at the moment, but I think we are working towards it.
Thanks. We have another question from the side of the room.
Yeah, hi, my name is Devin. Key crux faced by Malaysia, whether it's agri or manufacturing or services sector, we have become dependent on foreign labor. You know, the lady just posed a question on the other side. Pemandu, is there a question to both and also open to the floor? Is there a straight target set KPI? Maybe not KPI, the right word, in terms of expedite. We use words like innovation, but it's all up in high tea, you know, quick win-wins. I remember at one time, Malaysia had coconut trees and we were trying to train monkeys. But of course that failed and Indonesia has overtaken us, you know, we get beautiful coconut water to drink that's all beautifully shaven from Thailand. Malaysia is losing out in terms of rubber as well to Thailand. But coming back to this point, is there a straight KPI? Because we can't increase in terms of land bank. Is there any quick automation being done, developed, specialized, a Malaysia Boleh attitude if possible to get these up so that Malaysians will less dependent on foreign labor? They've just opened the taps for Bangladesh, but they will also go back one day. How are we going to address this? Pemandu, any key KPIs? Because if not, we're going to lose terribly.
There is no set KPIs for that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing because I don't think any country, not just Malaysia, anywhere in the world can say that you can run an economy without foreign labor. You go to London now and the person who will be serving you is probably an Albanian or Polish. So it happens even in mature economies. So we've got to take cognizance that in a globalized, borderless world, talent is going to move freely between areas. So the question is, how do you equip your people to be able to take on jobs that are higher value, but at the same time, where we don't have those talents and we need those talents, we must allow those talents to work on it until we are able to work on the talent. So there is no KPI set for manufacturing or plantation per se, but we got to bear in mind that the world is moving towards globalization. We're talking about AEC, ASEAN Economic Community in 2015. We're talking about free flow of trade, free flow of people. So you can't put a stop to it, but you can manage the situation by upgrading our human capital. I think that's the way to do it, not so much of putting a hard stop to foreign talent from coming in by hook or by crook.
Cool, thank you. Ahead of the gentleman on the left, perhaps from the middle of the room first, please.
Hi, Tan Sri, this question is for you. Good morning, Salam Satu Malaysia. Danny from somewhere in Negeri Sembilan. Question is, obviously oil palm is a very matured industry now. And as you mentioned, meritocracy, it's debatable whether true meritocracy is truly practiced in industries. Now, for the young people, the younger generation out there who is reaping the success of the previous generation, what do you reckon the next step ought to be for those who still want to be and remain in the industry? possibly, like the gentleman mentioned from Mandu, that it's downstream, was it? What are the methods? Because obviously climbing the ladder is going to be pretty tough. Like you said, 3 generations can't wait that long. So what are the other opportunities out there? Thank you.
I think first thing first, oil palm is here to stay. The palm oil is 30% of the world oils and fats market. Without palm oil, the price of oils and fats will shoot sky high. So palm oil industry is here to stay because the world needs palm oil. And palm oil is the ingredients for many, many industries. So it depending on which sector of the industry you are participating in, because some people are participating in the machinery supplying part, some people are in the transportation part, some people are in the downstream part, and some are in the providing IT for the palm oil industry. So whichever sector that you are in, you have to think about innovation of how to help the industry and how so that you can serve better, so that you can actually help you know the needs of the industry. We need to have higher productivity per man day. We need to have higher productivity per hectare of land. We need to have the logistic play a very big value in our value chain of the palm oil. And of course, there are a lot of opportunities in downstream, in the biomass that the palm oil produces, in the oleochemical sectors, in the food sectors. So it depends which sector you are in, but irrespective of it, you have to innovate.
Thank you, Tan Sri. The gentleman on the left of the room.
Good morning. Ralph from YTL. Clearly this morning we've talked a lot about the perception of palm oil in foreign markets, and a lot of that has to do with sustainability. The soy lobby in the 90s in the US and the recent Nutella tax in France and New Zealand and other places have clearly shown that there has to be a focus. Just to throw a wild question in, a bit of a sort of devil's advocate question is, why penalize the consumers of sustainable palm oil, and why not incentivize them? So instead of RSPO palm oil being at a premium, why shouldn't there be subsidies towards making it actually at the same price or even cheaper than non-sustainable palm oil, just to actually promote the sustainability angle?
What do you think?
Thank you.
This will be my personal opinion. I think in a free market environment, subsidizing is not a good word, and it may not be sustainable. And really, I think the important thing is you must have a premium, because if you don't have a premium, you won't have the supply to start off with. So having the premium is actually important, instead of having a subsidy. In any case, if you put in a subsidy, I think it would probably contravene WTO. I think I have some colleagues who are expert in FTAs and all that, probably contravene WTO anyway.
Okay, thank you. Cool. Perhaps from the center of the room, please.
My name is Dr. Saw. Can Tan Sri comment on the role of oil palm in biodiesel currently?
Yeah, I think there was always a role for biodiesel in this country, especially when the crude oil price is kept high and the palm oil price is low. So that the amount of subsidy in which the government have to give is tolerable. I think currently the government have a B5 policy, and which is progressively being rolled out throughout this country, and by next year I think it will be fully roll out the B5, which the government subsidize the palm oil with the same amount of money as they subsidize for the diesel, for the subsidized diesel. For subsidized diesel, the government is subsidizing a fixed amount of cents per liter. So they are using this money to subsidize palm oil to make biodiesel viable for their use in the industry. This is very important to us, because if we encourage our consumer to use more biodiesel, we have to show an example ourselves. And Indonesia is doing the same thing. But of course, at a certain point in the market where palm oil might be cheap enough to be used directly for burning in the factories, in the industries, in the boilers in the factories, it may be also possible. And in those cases, you don't even need to change the biodiesel.
Tan Sri, thank you. Gentleman in front, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Ho Fong Lee from Ho Fong Lee #1 School of Management. What I've listened so far is just oil palm industry, just like any other industries, are facing a lot of challenges. That is normal, I believe. Yeah. Now, I've got an offer, at the same time a question. I'm from the direct lineage of the founder, Mr. Tai Chiono, Toyota Production System. Now we have got this offer to all Malaysian companies, 70% subsidized mono-zucchini mission back to Toyota Nagoya, to get a first-hand look at how Toyota developed the company to what it is today, a $262 billion US company. That's one. Anybody can come, yeah? Second question, to Tan Sri Mo. You are trying to develop a thinking organization, just like what Ono-san is trying to do. Can you share with us your secret that can show to us how do you create this environment where continuous improvement can be seen? If you walk into a Toyota plant, you can see it happening by the second. How have you come to that stage yet? Can you share a little bit more on that? I'd be very interested to know more. Thank you.
Yeah, I think if, as we say, is that innovation is, for us, is a step-by-step process. And depending which sector of R&D is involved. For example, in the palm oil breeding sector, we've been breeding the palm oil and making the improvements for over 20 over years. As I mentioned, our current generation of planting material that we have produced by seed is, we can expect improvement of 20-25%. And the next series that we are bringing up in probably 2015-16, we will probably see another 15-20% improvement on that. Okay, but that's but it takes time. It takes time because it takes a lot of consistent efforts. But of course, there are other innovations which are faster. So I think very important is for us to know which area we want to innovate in by knowing the industry. For example, fertilizers, 1/3 the cost of our production cost. So the area that we want to work with is that how can we use microbes, to enhance the usage of fertilizer better by the oil palm. If we can do that, maybe we can save another 10% of total cost, and that's a big number to us. So I think an example, what I'm just saying is that innovation have to take place continuously in all sectors of our industry. All sectors of the industry. Some will be faster, some will be slower, but we try to get everybody involved by discussing the problems that we have in industry and brainstorming to what possible solutions there may be.
Okay, thank you, Tan Sri. From the front of the room, please. Have a microphone. Thank you.
We have so far this morning discussed the special dominant position of Malaysia in oil palm and talking about how we are building the distance with the competitors. But just to look one step backwards, I think we have seen the demise of cocoa by pears and the demise of the tin industry and the continued decline of our special position of rubber. I think a meeting like this, maybe we should also cover the areas of vulnerability the industry is facing. Gadodoma, I think, is eating up a lot of palms. Our over-dependence on the foreign labor, and also one day maybe when we wake up, the consumer nation may suddenly not take our oil, I think we have to sort of also, looking forward, maybe have a session to discuss where we are most vulnerable and to be proactive to make sure oil palm do not become another victim. Thank you.
We cannot agree with you more. We have to be conscious of all these dangers to the industry, which actually can set us back very seriously. But to your earlier comment, I think is that the demise of rubber and cocoa went down very much faster when the big private companies were no longer interested in those crops for various reasons of labor or whatever reason is that. We have stopped breeding in rubber now. Cocoa, there's no improvement in the clonal things. So that is a big part for private companies like Sime Darby, KLK, IOI, to Felda to play in their research and development. Because the minute that we stop researching on those areas, we will see a gradual demise or loss of interest and loss of competitiveness. I don't think we can guarantee the future, but we can only try to minimize those risks that you have mentioned. Yeah.
I think Tan Sri is really right. You know, when the big companies moved out of rubber, that was the sort of the start of the demise of rubber. But many may not know, but actually our NK covers palm oil and rubber. So we're putting our thoughts down in terms of how do you reverse this situation in rubber. On the smallholder side, it is a very good tool for poverty eradication because unlike FFB, where you need to process within a day, rubber, if you are in the interior area, you could still bring out the cup lumps and you could still process them to SMR. So it's a very good tool for poverty eradication, especially in the rural area. So we're working on the upstream, but my concern right now is the downstream. In terms of innovation of end product, end use of rubber, we're not doing it fast enough, and we must accelerate the process to do it fast enough. We have now something called Ecoprena and Pureprena, which you can use as green rubber in tires, for example, with companies in Germany and in Korea that are interested. But we got to move even faster. We got also Pureprena that you can use in products like mountings in vehicles, stabilizers when you build bridges and roads, for example. These are green, you know, in line with global development, but we're not moving fast enough.
Thanks, Khoo. Questions from perhaps this side of the room? Okay, over there. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, hi, Tan Sri. My name is Kathleen, and I'm actually a full-time investor. Being an investor in the financial markets, I focus on US markets. I find that it's not easy to start up a company from scratch, right? And it takes a lot of determinations to go through all the challenges. And I find myself that I would rather find the great companies to invest in. However, I know that in our country, we do need more entrepreneurs for our country to grow. So how do you actually encourage the next generations? You know, what's the greatest motivation that you have actually gotten in this whole journey that actually deserve, you know, all the challenges you have go through? Because having evaluated that, I know there's a lot of sacrifice, personal sacrifice that goes along the way too. So I really want to hear from you, you know, to motivate our next generation. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's true that is starting a new business, especially in a developed country, is a very tedious task. I think, first of all, you must have the interest. If you have got the interest, then you look deeper and deeper into it. And Malaysians throughout the world have been shown to be very innovative. You know, you can almost pick any field and you can pinpoint one Malaysian there. Yeah, have invented something. So I will not downgrade the abilities of Malaysia to innovate. But of course, in any particular field, you must really have the passion. And you must have the passion to read the dream that is possible. As they said, you know, this Dr. Everett Godding who invented rocket propulsion. I think in 1945 he mentioned that it's possible to send a man to the moon, and people are laughing at him, So things that you dream today is possible, but you must have the passion to do it.
Good morning, Tan Sri. My name is Jerry Ambrose from Aberdeen Asset Management. I have Irish roots, and at one time over a century ago, we became rather over-dependent upon potatoes. So when the crop failed, it led to starvation. I think in France there was something called phylloxera that killed out the entire grape vine population in France. Do you think perhaps that Malaysia is a bit mono-agriculture, i.e. too dependent upon palm oil, and if you went back 20 years, would you have kept a bit more rubber?
Yeah, the fact is that we are too mono. I agree with you. And I think when the trend to convert the rubber plantations into oil palm, I think the industry went on a pretty wide scale, whether it's very hilly land or what. But now I could see a very small amount of reconversion back to rubber on the hills, on the poor soils. But that's only a very small fraction. I think the fact remains is that palm oil is less labor intensive than many of the other crops like rubber and cocoa. And we, at this particular moment, do not have any alternative that can actually cover the huge masses of land, to cover the, say, maybe 1 million hectare of land. Palm oil in this country has 5 million hectares. Even the thick 20%, I can't think of any crop at this particular moment. Yeah.
From the center of the room, please.
Hi, my name is Peggy. I actually wanted to make a request to Tan Sri to do something, which you'll be a little bit surprised. First of all, I was really, really surprised to see him here because Tan Sri's character by nature is very low profile. He doesn't really much to talk much. But knowing him and actually his father and the family, that this family is really a family of integrity, honesty, accountability, and humility. And I've seen, Tan Sri has, very well educated, come from Harvard University, and all this, and really a role model for the young people. My request is, Tan Sri, I believe that you have so much to share, and you need to share with the young people about integrity, honesty, and credibility, and how we can actually combine everything together and yet become a very successful entrepreneur. So we really request for you to come, be a little bit more open and speak more so that we will look up to you for your success, because it is not just about money. It is about your faith, your family, your finance, your fitness, your friends, your fun, and your fruits. That's the legacy that your father has left behind. And I believe that you and your children will leave behind this legacy. And I firmly believe it will pass the third generation.
Okay, thank you, Peggy.
I think all I can say is sounds like a planted advertisement.
From the center of the room, please.
Tan Sri, I would like to ask your advice. If I'm a small-time investor in the oil palm, okay, can you tell us what are the do's and don'ts? If I have no experience, I'm going to it, what are the do's and don'ts?
I mean, the terms of the upstream, right, in planting.
Yes.
In planting. I think first is to aim your target high. There are some smallholders who have been able to do, depending on the quality of the land, which you cannot do anything about. They have able to produce between 30 to 40 tons per hectare. So set your target high and find out what are the key ingredients that you need to do to achieve this type of targets. And you can learn a lot from the smallholders. There are very successful smallholders out there who are producing this type of data, yields that even the big private companies are quite embarrassed of. Yeah.
What is the minimum acreage to be profitable?
I think generally you got, depending on what do you mean by profitable and how high your ambition is, I guess. I think even with 10 acres of land, you can be very comfortable as a family.
Thank you.
And please also seek out the assistance of MPOB. We have offices all around the country to help people like you.
From the back of the room, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Raymond Khoo. I have a question to ask regarding about stock. I understand that recently, past few months, our CPO stock level has been actually climbing, and I think we keep staying at the high stock. So I just want to know what is your opinions that what could be done in order to make sure that the stock levels could be coming down, or is it because of the demand is not coming in, or what? This is one of the questions. And the next question is, you're talking about palm oil. I think in terms of palm oil, in terms of vegetable oil price, palm oil seems to be the lowest among other vegetable oils. So what could be done in order to make sure that we are able to actually stay competitive with other oils? Because I think we are controlling 30% of the market. We should actually able to actually get a much more better price in terms of comparing other oils. So what should be done in a way to make sure that we will be at the same level with the other vegetable oils? Thank you.
Yeah, what you say is true. Currently, I think the palm oil prices is nearly about 30% below that of soybean oil prices. But it's also a function of supply and demand. I think palm oil supply has been coming up at a very fast rate, particularly I think from Indonesia. And I think as a percentage of the world tradable oil, we are a very high percentage. I will say in the region of 70% or something, or 60, 70%. So I think is that when there is a lot of supply coming out, normally the price will be a little bit depressed. And I think it's a seasonal also, because the 2012, at least the first good part of 2012, the yields were very low. Then we have a big bumper crop the last quarter of 2012, spilling over this year. So we have got high stocks, but it's going to take a bit longer time to digest it through, but eventually it will be digested through. Because the best solution for high stock is low prices. Automatically people will switch, And currently now, I think there's a lot of consumption from the biodiesel side, especially Indonesia. I think from Indonesia, all the biodiesel plants in Indonesia are practically running full. So I think this will also help to consume a lot of the stocks.
Stocks is always a function of supply and demand. But in looking at supply and demand, we must not be too enamored with the cycles of things, because those are temporary cycles. But what you can do is structurally make sure that you do the fundamental changes that will better manage the whole industry. So for example, replanting. We depend on the private sector to replant up to about 100,000 hectares a year. This year, we're putting a lot of emphasis on trying to get the organized smallholders and smallholders to replant another 100,000 hectares. That would take off a lot of stocks, from production immediately. And then the demand side of it, correcting the perception and making sure that our stocks to EU will increase. And in fact, the first 2 months of this year has increased is very important. So that work needs to continue. And biodiesel as a backstop is also useful.
Thanks. From the center of the room, please, the gentleman. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Tan Sri. I have a quick question. Is that amidst all the sharing today on the challenges, the opportunities, where the Malaysia's strength is, what is your vision of Malaysia palm oil in the next 25 years? And how KLK will contribute to this vision? Thank you.
I think as we mentioned, we need to improve in productivity. There's no other way. Productivity in terms of workers, productivity and productivity per hectare. Currently, the palm oil industry, as I said, only 4 tons. For many of us, I think we are setting a minimum of 6 tons within the next short term, 3 years, 4 years. We hope to reach at least the 6 tons per hectare. And from then, I think we can keep going on with the productivity. For the labor, I think if we can even reduce from 1 to 8 hectares to even in the medium term, 1 to 12 hectares, which means that we have reduced we have increased our productivity by 50%. That's a big number. And we have got actually I know of some estates, individual estates, especially in Johor, where the productivity is much higher because they use a lot of buffalo harvesting. The terrain is slightly better, flatter, and all those things. The productivity already we reach 1 to 11 workers. So 1 to 12 is not a difficult issue. And then I think we need to there's a lot of things going on for Malaysia in terms of infrastructure. We have good ports, our road systems are good, at least compared to Indonesia, So transport system is so much cheaper here than in Indonesia. Our infrastructure is very good. So there's also a lot of positive things that's going on for the palm oil industry here.
I think on the infrastructure, just like to add a bit that the peninsula, obviously, on infrastructure is top-notch. In places like Sabah and Sarawak, a lot more work needs to be done. In Sabah specifically, we are developing the Lahad Datu POIC. A very key part of that is the port. You need a port, a containerized port, in order for oleochemicals to go out. We have no oleochemical in Sabah at the moment. So we're hoping that with the port facility, containerized port, you will do bulk as well as containerized merchandise. And then the water requirement, the power requirement within Lahad Datu, and the roads and all that. There's a lot more room that we can improve in Sabah and definitely in Sarawak later on.
Thanks, Khoo. From the front of the room, please.
Hi, Guna from Kinibis. This question about oil palm prices again. Considering that there are just 2 major producers in the world, why can't there be some kind of greater cooperation between these 2 countries to sort of like set the prices, and if that's not possible, to maybe set a sort of like the old solution was to have like a buffer stockpile, to ensure that palm oil prices don't fall below a certain floor at least.
Yeah, it's true that Malaysia and Indonesia together has a big share of the palm oil market. But you must remember, palm oil is in the world of oils and fats, which is even a bigger market. OPEC couldn't control prices. And Indonesia and Malaysia, I think it would be a very wrong message to send out to the world and drive a lot of consumers away if we're going to make an announcement from now on the 2 countries will only sell palm oil at this certain price, a minimum price of so much. I think it will alienate our customers. And also in this, now it's a free world, so you may have other implications for the rest of for the image of Malaysia and Indonesia.
Okay. I think actually logistically, let's say you will only sell at a certain price, and then suddenly you have a dip in the market demand. Storage is a problem, because at one point when we were hitting 2.65 metric tons, we're literally running out of place to store the oil. Yeah. So unfortunately, probably it's not feasible.
Okay, thank you. From the center of the room, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Marco of the Malaysian Dutch Business Council. Both Tan Sri Lee and Mr. Khoo touched on the preferred tariffs in Europe that are ending by the end of the year, dramatically cutting into your margins. What is the local palm oil industry doing to pressure the Malaysian government to speed up the EU-Malaysia FTA talks? Thank you.
Yeah. I think we have to make our concerns known to the Ministry of Trade, because sometimes they forgot about palm oil. They forgot that palm oil is the 2nd biggest employer in this country. It's one of the biggest earner of the thing in this country. They are more concerned about their local problems, in this country. They forgot about because palm oil don't give them any problems, Only give them taxes in revenue. So they only know how to collect the tax from the palm oil industry. They forgot to take care of us. I think we got to raise this point.
Okay, we've got time for one more last question before we let the 2 gentlemen go from the stage. Perhaps from that side of them. Okay, thank you. Derek? Yep. Please.
Thank you, Tan Sri. I totally agree with the lady just now. For somebody who's low profile and don't often come out, today you've certainly shared a lot. I benefited. Tan Sri, my question for you is, how do you see the role of MPOB? Taking is the last question. How would you like it to be if you have a chance to do it over?
How do I see the world of?
How do you see the role of
MPOB.
How do you see the role of the Malaysian Palm Oil Board, especially when it comes to research and development? And if you have a chance to do it over, how would you want to see it differently?
I'll answer the first part because I don't think I have a chance to do it over. I think MPOB certainly need to work more with the industry, very much more with the industry, open up the research much more, and I think perhaps to do very much more joint research with the industry. Because I think the danger of MPOB is that they sometimes can live in the academic world, you know, living somewhere high there, doing a lot of research, whether you're measuring enough of the return, the KPIs or not. So they need the feedback for the industry to really say whether what they are doing is good or not, and to measure up, because the measure up to the KPIs. I know from your company in Genting, for example, you have done a lot in the genes, you know. So sharing and greater collaboration will mean a faster innovation for the industry, and we all should encourage that.
I have to speak up for MPOB, I think. I totally agree that I think Idris Jala had said this. He said the biggest room in the world is room for improvement. There's always room for improvement, even at MPOB. Greater collaboration with the private sector is one great way to do it. To be fair to them, I think they have done, as the regulator of the industry, they have done very well in terms of maintaining that the rules are followed, following up from everything on yield to mechanization to oil extraction rate to how the refineries are producing. They're doing all of that. They're doing the utmost. Having had the opportunity to work with them personally for the last 1 year, they're a very good set of people to work with, but there's always room for improvement.
Tan Sri, Khoo. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Tan Sri, your insights and wisdom have truly enlightened and inspired all of us this morning in a special and personal way to each and every one of us in this room. For that, we remain forever in your debt. Thank you ever so much for being so generous with your time and presence. Khoo, Pemandu's mission to nurture business and to inspire business to expand beyond the safety of our shores will only become apparent years from now. Please. Pemandu, without your work and indeed all within Pemandu, none of this would have been possible. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings to a close the inaugural issue of the Global Malaysia Series brought to you by the Economic Transformation Program and BFM. Also bear in mind that this will be one of several more to be taken over the course of this year, and we do look forward to your participation in the next session. To everybody in this room today, it was both an honor and a pleasure to share this special occasion with all of you. Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of the day ahead.